Hi, I'm Paul, and thanks for having a look at this video. This is part 3 of my series of using cognitive services, and particularly the computer vision stuff, from within Powerapps. So as a quick recap, in part 1 of this series, I showed you some examples of little apps that I put together demonstrating different features of the computer vision cognitive services service, so different things that we could do. And then in part 2, I showed you how I built this example. This is the one which puts a caption or a label on a picture and pulls back tags, so words that describe what's in that picture. So in part 3, I'm going to show you how we can do some OCR, some optical character recognition from the camera. So let's just give you a reminder of what that application looks like. So that's the rear camera of my Surface. I am just going to pop this little leaflet behind it here and try and hold it steady. Not a great picture, but let's use that. So I've captured that image, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the OCR button that I've put on here. So that image is going to get sent up to the computer vision API with a request to scan it for text, and then that's going to return the text that it managed to read from the image. So let's hit the button there, and you'll see some activity going on at the top to indicate that we've got communication going backwards and forwards. And here we are. So this is the text that it's managed to pull out of there. So it's a little bit squiffy in places because I didn't take a very good picture, but you can see that that has worked, and it has worked reasonably quickly. Okay. So that's what we're going to be building, and I'm going to show you how to build that pretty much from the ground up. The one thing that I am going to skip is going to be how you register to use the cognitive services and the computer vision service. I covered that in the part 2 where I showed you how to build this caption and tag from add picture example. So watch the first 10 minutes of part 2, follow along with that, and you will then see how you can set up a license, if you like. It's completely free, don't worry, to use the computer vision API, and we're going to need that again for the one that we're doing right now, which is the OCR from camera. Okay, so I'm going to jump into a completely new fresh Power App so that we can show you building it pretty much from the beginning. So what we're going to do first of all then is we are going to add a camera control. So I'm going to do this one from the camera control rather than from the add picture control. And there's two reasons why I'm going to do that. Okay, so the first reason is that when we send our images off to the computer vision service to be analysed, those images need to be 4 megabytes or less. If it's bigger than 4 megabytes, then it will be rejected. And with the add picture control, you might select a picture which is more than 4 megabytes and therefore get it rejected. And also, if you're creating an app that you're going to put on, say, a smartphone, the add picture control will either let you select an image from the gallery of the phone, so previous photos you've taken, or it will let you take a photo using the phone itself. And the problem with that is that those images are likely to be more than 4 megabytes. So if you've got a modern smartphone that you're running this on, you're going to get a bigger than 4 megabyte picture come back. When you use the camera control, it automatically sets the resolution to something which is a little bit more manageable. So that's reason one for using the camera control, so that we're sure that the images that we take are going to be small enough that the computer vision service is going to accept them. Okay. Now the other reason that we're going to use the camera control is it's a lot easier, because what we're going to do in this example is we're going to use Flow as an intermediary to handle the information between Powerapps and Cognitive Services, and we're going to do that because for the life of me I can't get Powerapps and Cognitive Services to talk directly to each other when we're trying to do the OCR. So let me try and show you what happens there, just so that you know. Let's just set this up so that we can record an image, and then as I say, I'll show you what I'm talking about and why I'm going to use Flow for this one. So for the on select of this camera, so when we click on this camera control, what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect the image that has been taken. So I'm going to pop that in a collection. So collections, remember, is just sort of a tabular variable, so we can hold data in a table format in a collection. So I'm going to call the collection col photo. In fact, let's make it a clear collect so that we get rid of any photos that are already in there each time we click. And what I want to put in there is going to be camera 2.photo. So there we are. When I click on here, what we're going to do is we're going to record that photo in a collection called col photo, and I'm just going to also drop on here an image control so that we can see the photo that we've just taken. So let's pop that over here. We'll resize it to be a similar size to the camera, and I'm going to set the image property on this. Let's just show you actually what's inside that collection. So take an image first, go to view, go to collections, and you'll see what's inside. I've got a collection called col photo, and I have got, it is a table, but it is one row and one column, and the column is called URL, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment, why that's called URL, because that's significant. But oopsie daisy, sorry, back in here where I'm setting what I want to show in my image control, I want it to show something from the first row of my col photo collection, because remember it's tabular data, and I want the stuff out of the URL column. So we've got to navigate to the right place within our table. So think of it a little bit like Excel, where you say, well, I want it from this row and I want it from this column. So it's exactly the same sort of idea. I want something from the first row of my col photo collection, and I want to grab the item which is in the URL column. So there we are. So we can see now that we can take our image. So that's looking good. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to pop a button on here. So here's my button. Let's just move it out of the way a little bit down here so that we can take the image that we have just recorded and we can send that off to the computer vision API. Now, the last example I did was nice and easy because we were able to call that computer vision API from directly within Powerapps, because that particular one that we were using, the describe image content, was compatible, whereas the OCR one is not directly compatible with Powerapps, so we're going to end up using Flow to do a little bit of translation for us in the middle. Okay, now of course the thing that I have forgotten is to actually add my connector for my data source for computer vision. So I'm just coming into view, data sources, and then add connection, which is taking its time. Okay, there we are. I paused it for a moment just because my machine was going a little bit slow. And here we've got the computer vision API. Now, as I say, in part 2 I showed you how to add that computer vision API, so I'm not going to go over the same ground again. I'm just going to click to select it. There we are. So now I've got that added as a data source. Now when I go into my on select on my button, I can start trying to call the computer Vision API functions. So there are various different services that you can connect to. One we used before was the describe image content, and for that we just then had to give it an image file to be sent. What we're going to do this time is we're going to use this OCR text, but what you can see here is that it's asking for some different information to what that describe image content asked for. So it's saying, okay, what are you going to send to me? What's the format of the data going to be? Is it going to be image content, or is it going to be an image URL? So for image content, then it would probably be looking for a binary file. If it's image URL, then you could point it to an existing file which is somewhere on the web, so you could give it a link, and then it would go and have a look at the picture of that link and give you the OCR text. But I can't get this to work directly from within Powerapps, because whichever one of these I choose, you would think your next argument would be to say, okay, give me the image content, or if I've chosen the URL as the source, give me the link that you want me to analyze. And try as I might, I can't get this to work directly from within Powerapps. So instead, for this one, like I say, we're going to use Flow for the next step. So Flow is great. Flow is the tool that we can use to connect different services together. Now there's different ways that we can get into Flow from here. So I could either just click on my little waffle menu there, go to all my apps, choose Flow and start a flow that way. So there's Flow in there. The other way, if you're already in Powerapps, is you can select a button, go to action, tell it that you're interested in flows. It will show you any flows that you've already got set up that are compatible with Powerapps. That's one from an earlier project. So I'm going to create a new flow. And wouldn't you know it, that's giving me a 404 error. So I did say that there were two ways of getting into Flow, so I guess we'd better look at the other way of doing it. So I'm going to go up to the waffle menu and I'm going to check all apps and I'm going to choose Flow from here. So I assume that's just a temporary issue with the service. Okay, so here I am in Flow. I've just realised what it was that I did wrong earlier. So I've got multiple accounts for Powerapps and Flow, and I flick between them. And because I am running this in a normal browser window, it was opening Flow and defaulting to a different account. So if you are juggling multiple accounts, it's a good idea to make sure that you use incognito windows or private browsing windows. Otherwise, what you sometimes find is that the browser automatically logs you in with different credentials than the ones that you really wanted to use. Okay, so then let's go from here. So whichever route you use to go in, you end up in the same place. So I've come into my flows. I can see existing flows that I've got here that I've set up for other things, and I'm going to create a new flow from blank. Now Flow, as I say, Flow is very cool. Flow can accept information or be triggered by a variety of different things. So flows can begin when you receive emails, or when you put a new file in OneDrive, or when something comes into your Twitter account. So there's a whole load of things which is called triggers, which set Flow to be running. And then what you can do is you can perform various actions, you can manipulate data, and then you can output that information again as well if you want to. So the sort of trigger that I want to use for right now is the Powerapp trigger. So here it is, Powerapps, Powerapp. So if I had done this from the Create New Flow button here, then it would have helped me skip a few steps. It would have brought me into here because obviously I'm creating a flow from Powerapps, so it's a Powerapps flow that I want to make, and that step would be in there for me already. Okay, now what we need to do here is we need to request from Powerapps the image that we want to analyze. So let's see how we do that. Now Powerapps is a little bit funny, or flow with Powerapps is a little bit interesting way of working. So you would perhaps think that you go into this this flow step here and say, okay, as part of this step I want to ask for a file, but that's not quite how you do it. What we're going to have to do instead is we're going to have to create a new step, and we're going to have to create a step which takes a file as input. So this can be pretty much any of them. I'm going to use SharePoint for the moment. So here we are. I'm going to use SharePoint create file. Okay, and this is going to ask me for various things, and I do have to fill these in, otherwise I'm not going to be able to proceed. So I'm just selecting one of my SharePoint sites. From this picker I'll be able to choose a folder to say where I want to put the file, a name, I'm just going to call it test.jpg, and then when we get to here, file content, here we can say, well, ask in Powerapps. Okay, so because we're saying in the file content box, ask in Powerapps, what we're going to do is we're going to be creating a parameter that needs to be filled in, which is of the type file content. So it's a little bit convoluted, but that's how we're going to do it. So now we have got a create file step in here. Powerapps is going to ask us to specify a file, the file that we want to use. So I'm going to leave this like this for the moment. I'll show you another little trick shortly, because we don't actually need to save the file. The only reason that we're doing this create file step is so that we can get a box which is of type file content, so that we can say ask for that in Powerapps. Okay, so now we're going to put in our next step, and in our next step we can start looking at this computer vision stuff. So here we are, there's our computer vision API connector. So I'm going to click on there, and then I'm going to select the OCR, and we want the OCR to come back to us as text rather than as JSON. We'll be talking more about JSON as we go through this series. JSON is JavaScript Object Notation, so it's a kind of a format for returning data. For this one we just need the text that has been read from the image. So we're going to do this OCR to text, and now this is going to say give us the image source. So again it's going to say, look, are you going to send this to us as a URL, as a link to something which already exists somewhere on the internet that we can get to, or are you going to send image content? So we're going to say send image content, and then it's going to say, well, what is that image content? And here we can say we want the image content that we asked Powerapps to provide. Now we're going to have to rewind just one little step here, because the image content that is coming from Powerapps is not quite in the format that we want. So let me talk you through that a little bit. So there are different formats that the images can be in. So forgive me, but I'm actually going to try to do you a little diagram type thing of what I'm talking about here. So a traditional web page has got lots of HTML text on it, and then when you want to put an image in your HTML page, traditionally what you would do is you would have that image sitting in a folder somewhere on your web server. So we've got an image file, JPEG, and in here you would have on your HTML page you would have something that says, okay, in this place put this image. And that's a little bit of a faff, because it means you've got to store your images separately to your HTML page, and so if you move things around you've got to remember to move your images as well, and you know, if your image changes name or it changes location or anything like that, then your HTML page is going to be broken. So people came up with the idea of, instead of having your image stored separately, having your image data directly in your HTML page, and they came up with a format for that, which is the URI format. So that's a hexadecimal format as opposed to a normal binary format that you find files in when they're stored in folders and so on. So what's happening, because Powerapps is sort of modern web enabled sort of app, it's sending the information back in this URI format, and what the computer vision service wants is this binary format. So we've got a little step to perform to convert our URI type information from Powerapps into the binary information that Flow is expecting. So let me just jump back into Flow again. Excuse me, here we are. So right, apologies, I'm just reconnecting keyboards and things after having done my little attempt at drawing on the screen. So I'm going to add a step in here which is going to convert the image content. I can actually do it directly in here. In fact, I'll do it in here to cut out the number of steps. Okay, so what I want to do is, I don't just want to put in this this reference here, because this is currently in, as I say, the URI format, and I need to get it into binary format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check through my expressions within Flow, and what I want to do is I want to use an expression which is data URI to binary. So that's going to convert the image for me. So I'm going to say data URI to binary. I'm going to open the brackets there so I can then pass through the file, which is going to be under this dynamic content bit. Now I'm going to have to do a little bit of scrolling here, because I've now got a step earlier which is going to SharePoint. It's saying, well, what is it that you want to convert from URI to binary? Is it some of this stuff out of SharePoint? No, it isn't. I'm just going to scroll down. I'm going to find the stuff which is coming from my Powerapps step, and I'm going to pop that in there instead. Okay, so that's going to convert my data from the URI format, which Powerapps supplies, to the binary format that the Cognitive Services wants to use. Great. Now I'm going to add one more step, because this step here, this Cognitive Services step, the computer vision step, should now have sent this image off and brought back the text, and now we need to send that text to Powerapps itself. So I'm going to create a step here which is going to talk to the Powerapps service, and it's going to respond to Powerapps. So it's going to send a response back, and I want that response to be text. So you could see there are various different types of things that we could return to Powerapps, but in this case it's going to be the text. And the text that we want to send back is, you can see now that we've added this step in here, this optical character recognition step. We've now got a detected text option here. So I'm going to pop that in, and I'm going to have to give this a title. So I'm going to call this OCR text. So that's great. I'm also going to name my flow. Now, you can obviously use your own naming conventions, but because flow can connect to all sorts of different services, I start mine with the name of the service that they're connecting to, or that's triggering them. So PA for Powerapps, and then I'm just going to say for this one OCR text, and I am going to save that. So we've only got 4 steps in here, and one of these steps is in a way a sort of a dummy step. It's just a way of being able to make sure that we're asking Powerapps to provide a parameter which is of the correct data type. If I get time, I'll come back into this in a moment and show you that we can actually do a branch in here so that this createfile never actually fires, so that no file is ever created, but because it's part of the flow, it will still be possible to request the information from Powerapps. So I'll come back to that in a moment, but maybe that's a little bit advanced and unnecessary for this stage. So here we are, I'm back into Powerapps again. So here's the button that I've got selected. I'm going to click on flow. So I've got the button, I've gone to action, I've gone to flows. Now I can see the flow that I just created, PA OCR text, and I'm going to click the button on there, and that is going to add this flow into Powerapps so that I can use this like a function. And what I'll be doing is I will be supplying the image data, and then what I will be getting back is the recognized text. Okay, so I need to get my image data. So remember, my image data is in my collection. So I'm going to say first col photo. So from the first row of col photo, get me whatever is in the URL column. Okay, now this is a little bit funny because I think URI and URL are sometimes used a little bit interchangeably. URL obviously would also get confused with normal link type URLs, and to confuse matters further, in Flow they refer to the file type as URI, and when you create your collection in Powerapps it ends up being referred to as URL, but for this purposes it's the same thing. So let's close the little bracket on there. So we've got a function which accepts an argument. So remember, when we were in Flow, we added this step so that we could say, ask me for the file content from Powerapps. Okay, and what we've also got is an output argument, OCR text. So what happens here, if I click the dot there, it should give me the different things that can be returned, and in this case there's only one thing which can be returned, which is OCR text. Now we want to do something with this information, so it's just text, so I'm just going to pop it in a variable. So I'm going to use the set command. I'm going to call my variable var OCR, so var for variable OCR. What do I want to set the value to? I want to set it to the function that we just put together, and I'm going to close the bracket on there. So when we click this button, what should happen is it should take the image data, the URL image data that we have stored by clicking on the camera. It's going to send it to flow. Flow is then going to send it to the computer vision service. The computer vision service is going to return some detected text, and then that's going to be sent back to Powerapps, being called OCR text. So let's see if that's all going to work. Let me just hide a couple of these things away, give us more space to work with. So I need somewhere to actually put this returned text. So I've just added a label. Let's pop it down here. I'm not going to spend any time trying to make things neat. We'll make it nice and big. The other thing that we will do is we will set the overflow method to scroll. So if there's more text than will fit in this box, we want scroll bars to appear so that we can scroll through it. We don't just want it to be truncated or hidden. And then for the text value of this box, it's going to be the variable that we created, which was var text. There we are. So we haven't got any, oh sorry, var OCR. There we are, var OCR. Lovely, so let's give that a try and see how we get on. Let me just adjust my machine a little bit so I can try and take a decent image of this text. It's a little bit out of focus. Okay, that I think is probably good enough. So I'm just going to tap there. Oh, let's put it in run mode because I can't hold it and hold down the Alt key to operate the button. Okay, so get it in order. Right. So first of all, click the camera to capture the image, and then we want to click the button. So it's sending off that image, which is just of my living room table. So it's come back with no text. It didn't find any text in there. So I've now got the image stored. So now when I press button, it's this image that it's going to send off. And there we are. That was quick, wasn't it? So we can see the terms and conditions for my new BNZ Flexi debit card. So that worked, and it was quick, wasn't it? That's impressive. Let's just do that one more time. So I'll get some different text this time. We'll go to the next page of the terms and conditions. So let's give it a moment to focus and try and hold it steady. Tap to take that picture, click the button, and send the image off. The image has been analysed and we've got the text back. So that is super fast and really quite good. And given that I don't have very good lighting and I'm just trying to handhold the leaflet that we're scanning, I think that's not done a bad job. We can see there are bits here, so suis fees rather than service fees. We've got a few little typos on here, but it's nice and quick, so you can do it multiple times until you've got a really good picture that the computer vision service can analyze. So that is using Powerapps to take an image with the camera and then performing OCR on that image and getting the OCR back into Powerapps again. So pretty neat, pretty quick, and all free. You do have to jump through some hoops a little bit on this one because you have to get flow involved in the equation. It would be really nice if the Microsoft Powerapps team made this OCR text command compatible or more compatible with Powerapps, like the one that we used in the previous example, which was the describe image content. But it's not too bad to put it through flow. As we saw, there's only a few steps in flow there. So that's how to build it all. While I was talking you through the flow, I don't want to turn this into a whole tutorial on flow, but just to emphasize that this create file step is only being used so that we can ask Powerapps for an image file. What I can do here, because this is storing the image, I am getting this file, test JPEG. Every time I run that, I'm getting a test JPEG file. It'll just overwrite the previous one, but I'm getting a test JPEG file in my shared documents folder in my team site here. If I want to still have this run, but not actually take the picture, what I can do is I can add, where is it, what I want to do. Sorry, yeah, there it is. Add a condition, which is going to give me an if statement, and I can say, choose a value if 1 is equal to 2. So 1 is never equal to 2, but I can say, look, if 1 is equal to 2, then perform the create file. If 1 is not equal to 2, then do the optical character recognition bit and the respond to Powerapps. Doesn't actually matter whether I put it inside that no block or not in this example. But so what you can see here is that this create file step is never actually going to fire. I'm never actually going to create a file, because 1 is never equal to 2. But it allows me to get this create file step into the flow so that I can say, okay, I want to ask Powerapps to give me a file. Because as I say, we've got no way of coming in here and selecting the parameters that we might want. I guess this has been done like this to try and make things simpler, but it's one of those cases where perhaps it's oversimplifying. It's making us, in some cases, not all, but in some cases, have to do weird things like save a file that we have no intention of actually using, or putting in an iffy condition like this where 1 is equal to 2, just so we can get a box in here, a step in here that asks for the file, so that this step here will ask Powerapps for the file. Okay, so there we are. I mentioned I was going to show you how you could avoid actually saving a file, so that's how you do it. But that is it all working. Again, once you know how to do it, it's quite a simple pattern to follow. We've only got a handful of controls in here that we're using. Although we have had to go into flow, there's only a few steps in the flow, so once you know how to do it, you know, you could put this thing together in you know, probably 10 minutes or less. Okay, so thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe, please give me some feedback in the comments. Let me know whether this was helpful. Did I go too slow? Did I go too quick? Is there too much depth? Is there not enough depth? But looks like it's time to say goodbye. Battery running low.